United States Senator Tim Scott is a tireless advocate for smaller government, lower taxes, and restoring fiscal responsibility in Washington. Growing up poor in a single-parent household in North Charleston, Tim learned the importance of faith, hard work, and living within your means. He did this by understanding the basic economic principles that our friends in Washington so often forget. And with the same determination he brings to advancing conservative principles in the Senate, Scott grew from his humble beginnings to build one of the most successful all-state agencies in South Carolina. An unbridled optimist, Senator Scott believes that despite our current challenges, our nation's brightest days are ahead of us. As a teenager, Tim had the fortune of meeting a strong conservative mentor, John Moniz. Moniz helped instill in Tim the notion that you can think your way out of poverty and that golden opportunities are always right around the corner. The American dream is alive and well, and Tim's story is a concrete example of that. Ladies and gentlemen, U.S. Senator Tim Scott.
Eight to 10 minutes, by the way.
I had 10 minutes.
And if you didn't the first time, I think it said 8 to 10 minutes.
Yeah. That's what I hate about young people. They interrupt you.
Alan, it looked like you interrupting him.
I always wanted to be tall until now. If I fall on this thing, I'll kill myself. Y'all don't have child labor laws in Greer? Where'd Alan go? I think his grandparents were 45, right? But anyway, I guess that's West Virginia now. Bottom line, but nobody here from West Virginia. But bottom line, we're glad to be here, and the government screwed up, so thanks for having us. We'll try to fix it. Speaking of young people, glad to have Tim here. We seldom get to appear together, and let me tell you about Tim. He is really one of the nicest people I've ever met. Very smart, speaks his mind. He's from Charleston, who is the county council chairman, so he knows how to govern. And to that guy in North Carolina, we don't really care what you think. And stay in North Carolina. What I thought I would do is just let you know that if I had to describe myself, a lot of people do that for me, so I think I'll take a chance to defend myself a bit. I'm a Chamber of Commerce Republican without hesitation and without apology. The Chamber of Commerce represents, to me, what's good about the country. How many of you are bankers? Who's not a banker? Got any lawyers here? Got anybody from the savings and loan? We'll start a fight with the bankers. But the bottom line is that most of you compete during the day for business, right? I know, because everybody's tried to give me a loan. The bottom line is the Chamber takes people who compete against each other during the day, and they come together to move the community forward. What would happen if Washington took that on for a day or two? Can you imagine? Why can't Republicans and Democrats do what y'all do? Compete but still work together. Make the community a better place. Call me naive, but I think we can. And it's pretty dysfunctional right now, but I'm hopeful that maybe we've turned a corner. We've got a budget. I'll be at the Inland Port dedication tomorrow. Anybody coming? That's a huge deal. Tim's been terrific. He understands the Port of Charleston, but he's been terrific. The Inland Port really is going to take the leverage we have from the Port of Charleston, move it up to the upstate, right in the middle of the I-85 corridor, and it's going to knock the socks off of this community. Greer, it really has been a lot of fun coming to these things over the years. Bottom line, immigration. Anybody want to talk about that? Not many people like talking about it because it's a hard problem. What I'm trying to do as your senator is to be a conservative voice for our state, represent our interests, and make Washington more like South Carolina. It is broken. But the way to fix it is that we're not short of people who yell at each other. That we have no shortage of that. We've got to find ways to solve problems. And I just mentioned immigration as a really difficult problem that needs to be solved. 80 million baby boomers are going to retire in the next 30 to 40 years. I will be one of them. And who's going to replace the workforce? When I was born in 1955, there were 16 workers for every retiree. Today there's 3. And in 20 years, there'll be 2. Tim and I are single, we don't have kids. I guess we're part of the problem. You know, we have a demographic challenge. As the baby boomers retire, they're going into Medicare and Social Security, right? Well, how do your children and grandchildren pay the bill that comes due in the next 30 or 40 years? When you got 2 people working for every retiree, and 50, 60 years ago, you had 16. That puts a real burden on your kids and your grandkids. Well, the way you solve this problem is you do what Tip O'Neill and Ronald Reagan did. You find a solution to save Social Security and Medicare from bankruptcy. That means that people in my income level and Tim's income level are going to have to take a little less out and put a little more in. I'm willing to do that because when I was 21, my mom died. When I was 22, my dad died. My sister was 14 at the time. And we lived over in Central. Anybody been to Central? We owned the liquor store in Central. We got any Clemson fans here? Met most of y'all. We loved it when the Tigers played at home. And we had a pool room, and that's where I learned everything I need to know about politics. But when my parents died, we moved in with an aunt and uncle that worked in the textile mills that are all now closed, and they never made over $30,000 in any year in their life. They're the nicest people in the world. Neither one of my parents finished high school, and Tim's got one heck of a story to tell. So I think we come from a part of life where we've all struggled. Everybody struggles. If it weren't for Social Security survivor benefits, that $300 plus check, it meant the world to my family, to me and my sister, my aunt and uncle. She received Pell Grants to go to college. You know, when my mom got sick, we got wiped out. If you own your own small business, you're one illness away from losing your business, and that's not right. I tell you that story just to let you know I get it. If it means that we're going to have to tell younger people they got to work a few years longer and save Social Security, let's give them 20 or 30 years to know they got to work a couple years longer, but they'll do it if it's good for the country. If people in my income level and some people out here in the audience, if we need to give up our subsidies for Medicare, why should the federal government pay $109 a month to help buy my prescription drugs when I retire? I can afford to do that. And I could give up a few bucks for Social Security retirement because I'll have other retirements. If we'll do these things, what Ronald Reagan and Tip O'Neill did, we'll save Social Security and Medicare from bankruptcy. But if we don't challenge ourselves and we don't ask America to make the changes on our watch that the future generations will need to survive, shame on us. And the reason I'm in the Senate is because it gives you a wonderful platform to do things that need to be done. Immigration needs to be solved because who's going to replace the 80 million workers who retire? You know, Strom had 4 kids after 67. Any volunteers? I didn't think so. Well, somebody clapped. An optimist. We're demographically challenged. We've got $2 trillion of corporate earnings parked overseas that are American-held companies that have businesses outside the country that have generated $2 trillion in profit. They won't bring it back into the country because of a 35% tax rate. We're one of the few countries in the world that double tax you. So I'm pushing for a one-time good deal, a 10% tax rate. Get that money back into the country, take the revenue from that money to put in our roads, our bridges, and our ports because they're all collapsing. I'm a conservative. I believe in the principles of being a Republican, but I believe in being an American more than anything else. Ladies and gentlemen, our country is very much challenged domestically and internationally. And how do you get out of this mess? Do what people before us did. Put the country ahead of self. And do what the chamber does every day. Work together for the common good. One last thought. I've talked about domestic politics, about reforming entitlements. We need to flatten out the tax code, eliminate some deductions, and pay down some debt because we're $17 trillion in debt. I will do that as a Republican if our Democratic friends will help us reform entitlements by adjusting the age and means testing. That's the big deal. We know what to do, we're just afraid to do it. But we don't talk enough about the world in which we live in. It's hard to do business when the world is on fire. Radical Islam is on the march. Remember 9/11? Do you remember where you were at that day? The one thing I can tell you, ladies and gentlemen, the only reason 3,000 Americans were killed on 9/11 and not 3 million is the radical Islamists couldn't get the weapons to kill 3 million of us. Do you believe if they could, they would? That is the challenge of our generation. This young Marine can shoot as good as he sings. I want to acknowledge these young Marines who came here tonight, but we're here to talk about business. But you can't talk about business unless you have security. You can't have a contest of ideas unless you have an open society where freedom is allowed to prevail, where people can pick their leaders, not have the leaders forced upon them. Ladies and gentlemen, business and democracy requires sacrifice. So I want to acknowledge that everything we do here tonight, we owe to our men and women in uniform. God bless them all.